Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm a cancer fighter. And I don't mean to say that I have a tumor or rapidly generating destructive cells. I am not undergoing chemotherapy, so I'm keeping my hair. That was my father's fight, and his battle ended in 1992 and stole him from his wife and 2 young children. My fight resides externally. It is one of advocacy and of fundraising. I fight to connect patients with allies and researchers with the funds to make a difference. I fight for those who are recovering, receiving treatment, those who have lost the battle, and those who will yet one day come to face this challenge. I fight for the hope that another son won't face the same casualties as me. I haven't always been a part of this. My father died a long time ago. And it's not like growing up without a dad suddenly makes me this expert in all things cancer-related. No, I just held one small trinket in what is this experience we all call cancer, a portrait that permeates the lives of millions of people around the world. No, my journey began just a few years ago when I found this organization here at the University of Illinois called the Illini 4000. On quad day, my freshman year, I heard about a group of students that does something absurd. Each year, they gather together a new crew and they bike across the country. Now, what I mean to say is they fight cancer. They happen to also bike across the country. So here's where this all comes together. Way back when, in like 2006, 2 Illinois students were off studying abroad in Singapore. While they were there, John Schlesinger and Anish Dakar, they were discussing the overall lack of funding that goes to worthy cancer research projects. See, at the time, John had recently lost a family member to cancer, and Anish had spent some time working in the lab. And they realized there just aren't enough funds to go around. And as a result, millions of people die each year from what one hopes might be avoided. The research just needs the time and the money. So, their crazy concocted scheme was to bike across the country. This cycling, it's a statement. It's loud, it's big, and on a grand scale, it's public. So we use it to show our commitment, our hard work, and our dedication to this fight. And as a result, we have raised over $500,000 for cancer research and patient support services since the founding ride in 2007. See, we're students. So what they did was they changed the picture. The question wasn't, how can we cure cancer? Because we aren't all scientists. I'm an engineering physics student. I don't know the first thing about biopsying a tumor cell. You don't want me anywhere near a medical lab. So, as a result, what they did was they based the strengths of this organization on the unique abilities we have as students. As students, we have these abilities. We have networks and we have summers. Right? We have our summers. So they changed it all instead of putting us in the lab and doing free research, because that still wouldn't solve the problem. Instead, they changed it. How can we promote this fundraising? How can we get cancer research the money it needs? Because that is what we can do. And there's a certain beauty to this. And I'm not talking about the bike ride, not nearly. You see, the beauty comes in the community that surrounds and supports this event. These are our 2 founders, John Schlesinger on the left and Anish Dakar on the right. All right, now picture this. You're driving across Montana. You've hardly seen anyone for 100 miles except for a few cyclists wearing bright white, orange, and blue jerseys. You've now pulled into a gas station, and you're filling up your tank. And in roll a group of smelly cyclists, and they bust out some serious peanut butter and jelly action. All right? You would probably walk over to them and ask them what they're doing. We get that all the time. We always look out of place, and so we use that to our advantage. And come this point in our process, we've already been fundraising for months. So if you meet us by the time we roll into Montana, what we really want to hear are your stories. We want to hear how cancer has affected you personally. We want to hear your unique and individual experience with cancer because we think the whole world would benefit from hearing what you have to say. Now, I was a member of the 2010 Bike America team. The 28 of us set a journey from New York City to San Francisco, a course lasting over 70 days and covering over 4,500 miles. Now, we would rest about 1 out of every 7 of those days, and if you do the math, that comes out to about 75 miles each day. And at night, we would sleep at schools, community centers, churches, any place where they would let us crash on their floor for free. Each year, we gather together a new team, and the fall begins with fundraising. See, many of our lasting impressions come from the results of the funding of the research that we fund. You see, what happens is the programs we put on, the cost of those pale in comparison to the huge percentage we pass along to fantastic organizations like the American Cancer Society, Damon Runyon, Livestrong, Camp Kesem. These organizations have an incredible reach, much beyond the scope of what we ourselves could handle as students here on campus. They are powerful promoters of research and patient support services. See, Livestrong is a fantastic example of this. What Livestrong does is they partner with a number of other cancer-fighting organizations, and they connect patients with incredible resources, my favorite of which is this booklet that they'll give you for free. And it helps you manage your medications or prepare for the unexpected emotional toll that a cancer diagnosis carries along with it. Camp Kesem is a camp for children whose parents have been affected by cancer. It is a week-long, and it is free to attend. So the children go out and they have a great time, and they are surrounded by people who know what they are going through, and it provides their parents with a little more freedom while they know their children are off enjoying themselves. One of my personal favorites is a new development in recent years. See, we've given an unrestricted $5,000 to a biomaterials researcher here on campus, Dr. Brendan Harley. Finding funding for cancer research projects is an incredibly lengthy ordeal. See, it is intricate, it is very involved, and there is no promise that you will ever see the funds you requested. And while that does help weed out poorly planned projects, it does a terrible job in the way it limits severely the amount of good science that can be done. So while we cannot fund multi-year projects, we can give a couple $1,000s to help his research group step into new territory. And where this took Dr. Harley's group was they developed a new structure for studying brain cancer cells. They made a 3D scaffolding that better helps us understand how these cells work. See, the biology is different when these cells are in the 3D model of a brain as compared to the 2D structure of a petri dish. So, by making these 3D platforms, doctors can take these cells out of the body and still get the same behaviors and practice with treatments or doses and help progress this science. So we proudly wear the badges of these organizations upon our jerseys, along with the sponsors, the ones who make this all possible. So our more passionate results, though, those come from the stories we hear, like the one I mentioned about Montana. See, the Portraits Project is a central branch of what made this ride come into existence. It is a collection of events and a website. And through this, we aim to document the American cancer experience, those very same experiences we encounter as we cycle through towns. See, cancer affects 1 million different people in 1 million different ways, but each and every time, that person's life is changed, even if it was not their diagnosis. So we interview cancer patients, survivors, caretakers, and medical staff. And each time we interview, we hear these recurring themes that reappear in almost every interaction. They tell us of family and of faith and of friendship and the community that makes this fight worth fighting. In 2010, our team met Marissa Huddleston in Portland, Oregon. She was a member of Team in Training, preparing to run a marathon. Previously, at the age of 17, she was diagnosed with leukemia. She told us of the tales of her treatment and of her present fundraising efforts on behalf of Team in Training. See, that money she raised, it was going to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the very ones responsible for funding the drug she received just a few years prior. And at the end of her interview, she shares with someone who maybe has a new diagnosis or has a family member or friend who's undergoing treatment. And she says, "I really appreciate my family. They were there for me in a huge aspect. My mom was there for me every single day, and I was in the hospital for, I think, 2 months. She's here with me now, and we're going to run a marathon." See, we didn't have time to train for having cancer or being in the hospital for 2 months, but we have this time, and we're training for this marathon. And we're going to cross the finish line together because it's just so symbolic of how we've finished fighting cancer together and how we're done with that. Our team met Ronald Stanek, a skin cancer survivor. We met him at a gas station in Hillsboro, Wisconsin. We met Marilyn Chislagi at the church we were sleeping at in Pittsburgh. She told us about losing her husband to colon cancer, where he too left behind 2 young children. We met Ronald Stanek in an ACS Hope Lodge in Rochester, Minnesota, where at the time he was receiving treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Peter DeRosier, Dorothy Callison, and Rudy Buteri we met in German, Montana, Camia, Idaho, and Rochester, Minnesota. Now, I want you to ask my teammates about Karen Ambler. See, they met Karen when asking to use the restroom at her floral shop. And before Karen could ask what they were riding for, she read their jerseys and said, "You are riding for me. I am a breast cancer survivor." And to hear my teammates tell about that single portrait in June of 2010, that chance encounter in the middle of Indiana, each and every one of them is a different person because of it. And I remember hearing from them, Karen quote, "1 in 5 women will be affected with breast cancer, and there are 7 of you ladies here right now." These are the stories we ride for. This is what makes this ride so powerful. It is a vehicle to unite and amplify the voices of spatially distant individuals who share a common running thread of experience. The community plays a huge aspect in the fight we are putting on. See, and it doesn't just stop at the Portraits Project, not nearly. We try to pass along as much money as possible. Our riders are incredibly thrifty. You could say the I4K pinches some serious pennies. So well in advance, when we connect with churches and schools, they respond as the most gracious hosts imaginable. See, our hosts are just incredible. They're better than any 5-star hotel because they are happy to see us there. They welcome us into their homes and they share with us their stories, and sometimes they'll even cook for us. which certainly beats the cheap cooking we can provide for ourselves. So while we might get it into our heads that we as riders are the ones doing the hard work, it is powerful to recall that this is only made possible by the incredible generosity of those who feed us, those who give us shelter, and those who contribute to funding for cancer research. I want to end with this. What I find most inspiring is the change that this organization inspires in people. And here's an example of that. These are my teammates. This summer, we will be riding from New York City to San Francisco. But as of September, none of them would be considered a cyclist. Practically none of them even owned a road bicycle, and I doubt more than a handful of us had ever ridden more than 30 miles in one day. But they come into this organization and they learn how to fix a flat tire. They learn how to maintain their bicycle, and they put down hundreds of miles in training, all of the while still working towards their degrees. We are college students. But to consider what we can achieve as a collective, and to put aside the absurdity of this for just long enough to realize why we do it, that makes a cyclist out of these people. To consider what we can work towards and obtain, they are amazed by the power of their own two legs. This right here, this is my portrait, for this is my story, and this is my fight. These are my battlegrounds, but it is just one of the very many that litter this arena of our times. My friends, they fight poverty, they fight homelessness, and they fight intolerance, and we're using our teeth and nails, developing tools to aid in our advancement. We know what we want to change in the spinning ball of mass we cohabitate. We've made cycling to work for us, but what is pulling your strings? Where can your legwork take you? And please, let's not stop where it's common. Let's make this absurd. Thank you.